drifted down like whispers of heaven, carpeting the stone paths of Uido Park. It was Sophia's first spring in Korea. She just arrived for her master's degree program on business and language studies. A young, beautiful lady in her early 20s, filled with positivities. Everything still felt surreal. The colors too sharp, the laughter too loud, the city too fast. She hugged her jacket closer as she moved among couples snapping selfies under the arching cherry blossom trees. She wasn't lonely exactly, but being far from home, thousands of miles from New York, had a way of making even a crowded park feel like a desert. Her phone buzzed. "Don't forget to send pictures, Sophia," her younger sister had texted earlier. So she raised her phone and tried, awkwardly, to capture the way blossoms framed the Han River. But she stepped back too far and almost tripped over someone sitting on the low stone wall. Whoa, careful," a warm voice said, steadying her by the arm. Sophia turned and met eyes so sharp and deep they almost startled her. The man stood, tall and broad-shouldered, his black hair ruffled by the breeze. He wore a casual button-down shirt, sleeves rolled up, but there was something about his posture too straight, too polished, too commanding to be ordinary. I'm so sorry," she stammered, embarrassed. "I wasn't looking." He smiled, not the practiced smile of a man who wanted to impress, but the kind that tugged at one corner of his lips and softened his eyes. "It's fine, but maybe the blossoms are safer from a distance than through a phone screen." Sophia laughed, shaking her head. "They look better than me in selfies, so I was trying to balance the competition." That made him chuckle, a low sound that lingered in her ears. He bent down and picked up the scarf she had nearly dropped in her stumble, handing it back. His fingers brushed hers briefly, just a flicker, but enough to send a strange warmth crawling up her arm. "First time at the Cherry Blossom Festival?" he asked. "Yes," she admitted. "I just arrived in Seoul a few weeks ago, still figuring out how not to get lost in the subway stations." He nodded, his gaze curious. "You don't sound like a tourist, though. Are you studying here?" She hesitated. "Yes, scholarship program. Business and language studies." "Ah, so you'll be here a while." He tilted his head, studying her as if trying to solve a riddle. Then he offered his hand. "I'm June. Just June." She took it. His handshake was firm, confident. "Sophia," she replied. For a moment, the world seemed to fade, the chatter of couples, the rustle of petals, the splash of the river. It was just her and this stranger with eyes that held too many secrets. They walked together beneath the blossoms, at first out of politeness, then because neither wanted the conversation to end. Sophia found herself laughing at his dry humor, surprised at how easy it was to talk to him. He asked about New York, and she painted vivid pictures of bustling New York lifestyles, festivals, and the warmth of cultural backgrounds. In turn, he spoke of Seoul not like a native, but like a man who still marveled at his own city's beauty. At one point, Sophia asked lightly, "So what do you do, June? You don't exactly look like a student." He hesitated just a beat too long before answering. "Business. Just regular business." She raised a brow. "That sounds vague. Maybe I like keeping a little mystery." His grin was teasing, but something flickered in his expression like a wall he had quickly rebuilt. Sophia decided not to press. After all, she barely knew him, but in her chest, something sparked. She didn't believe in fate, yet there was something about meeting this man, under the blossoms, that felt written. As twilight fell, lanterns were lit along the path, casting golden halos against the petals. The crowd thickened, couples holding hands, children laughing, lovers whispering. Sophia and June stopped near a food stall selling hotteok, sweet pancakes. He insisted she try one, and she insisted he stop, laughing at how clumsy she looked biting into the sticky treat. "You've got sugar on your lip," he said, almost softly. She quickly wiped it off, flustered. "Thanks." For a moment, their eyes locked again, and Amara's pulse quickened. There was something magnetic about him, something both comforting and dangerous. When it was time to leave, Amara found herself reluctant. June walked her to the subway station, and before she disappeared into the crowd, he said, I'd like to see you again. Her heart skipped. She nodded. Me too. As she turned away, she didn't see the black car that pulled up across the street, nor the bodyguard who discreetly followed June from a distance. She didn't see the way his expression hardened the moment she was gone, his phone already buzzing with corporate calls. To her, he was just June. To the world, he was Jun Ho Kong, heir to Korea's largest oil empire. And that secret, for now, was still buried under blossoms. For 3 days, Sophia carried the memory of the stranger under the cherry blossoms like a forbidden secret. She had tried to bury it under textbooks and routine, but whenever her pen hovered over lecture notes, her mind betrayed her. The way he had looked at her, as though she was not a passerby but the whole view, would not fade. When her phone buzzed one evening with an unfamiliar number, she hesitated. Then curiosity won. Hello, Sophia. The voice was low, steady. She froze. Him. Yes, who's this? She asked, though she already knew. It's June Kim. From that night. Unless you've forgotten already. Her lips curved despite herself. Just June. No title. No explanation. Just the man who had made her pulse race beneath the blossoms. He invited her to tea, not coffee. The choice surprised her. She expected neon cafes or crowded bars. But instead he led her through a narrow alley in Hongdae to a tucked-away Hanok-style tea house. Wooden beams arched low above them. The air steeped in roasted barley and sweet plum. The soft strum of a gyeojeum filled the quiet, like a private concert meant only for them. This place feels like it belongs in another century, Sophia whispered as they sat by the window. June smiled faintly. That's why I came here. No one rushes here. She studied him, amused. He's not like the men I know. Too calm, too careful. Their conversation began awkwardly, like strangers tugging at threads. But soon it loosened. They spoke of Seoul's noise, of childhood worlds apart from her snowy-drenched days in New York, his winters in Busan by the sea. June asked questions like someone who genuinely wanted answers, not to fill silence. His gaze was unwavering, yet not heavy. Every time he smiled at her sarcasm or laughed softly at her stories, warmth bloomed in Sophia's chest. He wasn't just listening, he was seeing her. And yet, contradictions clung to him. His clothes were plain, his wrist bare of jewelry, yet he carried himself with a subtle authority, as though he was used to being obeyed. His smile was gentle, but there was a guardedness beneath it, like locked doors she hadn't been invited to open. When the tea house finally closed, they stepped into the Seoul night, alive with neon signs and the hum of voices. Their steps fell in rhythm, brushing shoulders as they walked. Sophia teased him. You're mysterious, you know, talking about everything and nothing, but never quite enough. June tilted his head. Do you really want all the answers at once? Her heart stumbled. The question was simple, but the way he said it was low, deliberate made her feel as though he wasn't talking about facts at all, but about himself. Maybe not, she admitted, soft as confession. Some mysteries are better unwrapped slowly. The space between them seemed to thicken. By the time they reached her dorm street, Sophia wished the walk was longer. She didn't want to step out of this strange, intoxicating bubble. June stopped. For a long moment, he just looked at her, as if memorizing the curve of her face beneath the streetlights. I had a good time, he said quietly. Me too, she whispered, breath catching. His hand lifted, hesitated, then brushed a loose strand of hair from her cheek. His fingers lingered just a heartbeat too long against her skin. The warmth seared into her, and she froze, not in fear but in something dangerously close to longing. You're different, he murmured almost to himself. Her lips parted, but before she could speak, his hand dropped. The night pressed thick between them, and for one suspended second, she was sure he would kiss her. But he didn't. Good night, Sophia, he said instead, stepping back, and just like that, the spell broke. She stood there long after his footsteps faded, the city buzzing faintly around her. Her cheek still burned where he had touched her, and her lips tingled with the ache of a kiss that hadn't happened. It was madness. She hardly knew him. He was a stranger. But as she leaned against her dorm door, Heart racing, Sophia knew one thing for certain. She would see June again. And when she did, nothing would be the same. Sophia hadn't meant to see him again so soon. But one simple message, casual, "What are you doing this weekend?" had been enough to undo her resolve. The truth was, she wanted to see him, wanted to test the strange electricity that hummed between them, to know if it was real or just something she had imagined under the influence of cherry blossoms and dim tea lights. Saturday found her at the base of Namsan Tower, frowning at her reflection in the glass doors. She told herself it wasn't a date, though her nerves betrayed her. When June appeared, he was dressed simply against a dark sweater, clean lines, no extravagance, yet something about the way he moved made people glance twice. "You're late," she teased, though he was right on time. "And you're impatient," he countered smoothly. His smile was small, but it carried warmth that reached his eyes. They rode the cable car up, packed shoulder to shoulder among tourists. Sophia found herself pressed against him, the city sprawling beneath them in glittering grids. The proximity made her heart beat faster, though June stood steady, hands in pockets, calm as stone. At the top, Seoul stretched endlessly in every direction. Sophia inhaled deeply, the cool air brushing against her skin. "It feels like the whole city is ours," she murmured. June glanced sideways. "Maybe it is, at least for now." The words made her chest tighten, not because of what he said, but the way he said it. Quiet, almost like a promise. They wandered through the locks of love, the fences heavy with declarations from countless couples. Sophia stopped at one, reading faded words scrawled in different languages. "It's cheesy," she said, though her lips curved. "Cheesy can be honest," June replied. He pulled a lock from his pocket, surprising her. "You bought one?" She laughed. He shrugged. "Why not? We can add to the chaos." Their fingers brushed as they fastened it to the fence. The contact was brief, accidental, but the jolt it sent through her was not. She pulled her hand back quickly, trying to mask the flush creeping into her cheeks. June noticed but said nothing. Later, they descended into the life and noise of Namdaemun Market. Lanterns swayed above narrow lanes, their glow falling on stalls stacked with silks, carved wood, sizzling food. Sophia darted toward a stand selling sundae. "You have to try this." He eyed the steaming dish with skepticism. "That's the intestine, isn't it?" "Yes." She grinned wickedly. "Don't be a coward." June sighed, took a bite, and immediately grimaced. "That's an experience." Sophia burst into laughter, clutching her stomach, loud enough to draw stares. Her joy was unrestrained, spilling into the night air. And June couldn't help but laugh too, even as he shook his head. "You're cruel," he muttered, wiping his mouth. "You love it," she shot back. And strangely, he realized he did. Not the food, but this moment, her laughter, the way she seemed to carry the world's lightness in her voice. By evening, they walked along the Han River, where couples picnicked on blankets and cyclists whizzed by. The city lights shimmered across the water, boats drifting lazily under bridges. They sat on a bench, shoulders nearly touching. A breeze carried the faint scent of water and street food. Sophia pulled her jacket tighter, and without a word, June shifted closer, the warmth of his body brushing against hers. She felt it instantly, the charged nearness, the unspoken pull. "Do you always keep your life so hidden?" she asked, her voice quiet, as if the river itself was listening. June's gaze stayed on the water. "Some stories are better told slowly." She studied his profile, sharp lines softened by the night. There was something he wasn't saying, secrets folded behind his calm exterior. And though she should have been cautious, she felt herself drawn deeper, as though unraveling him was a risk worth taking. Their eyes met. For a breathless second, the world narrowed to that look. His lips so close she could almost taste the words he hadn't spoken. His hand lifted slightly, hesitating as though fighting itself. Her breath hitched. But before anything could happen, laughter from a passing couple broke the moment. June's hand dropped. He leaned back, giving her a small, careful smile that revealed nothing of what had almost been. "Let's get you home," he said softly. At her dorm gate, Sophia lingered. The ache of the almost kiss still throbbed inside her, sweet and frustrating. She wanted to ask why he hadn't closed the distance. She wanted to demand if he felt it too, the storm between them. Instead, she forced a smile. "Good night, June." "Good night, Sophia," he said, his eyes lingering on her face as though reluctant to look away. When she slipped inside, closing the door behind her, she leaned against it, her hand pressed to her chest. Her heart still pounded. Her skin still hummed where his shoulder had brushed hers. It hadn't been a kiss, but it had been something almost worse or better. Because the waiting, the longing, the hunger that grew sharper with every near miss, that was what made it unforgettable. And deep down, Sophia knew. The dam could only hold so long before it broke. Sophia told herself she was only meeting June out of curiosity. That was the word she clung to when her hands lingered too long over what to wear, or when her heart jumped at his message. "What are you doing this weekend?" She wasn't the kind of girl who lost her head over strangers. She was in Seoul to study, not to be distracted by a man whose name she barely knew. Yet when Saturday came, she found herself standing at the base of Namsan Tower, checking her reflection in the glass doors, smoothing her scarf as if her life depended on it. And when June appeared, everything in her carefully constructed excuses dissolved. He was dressed simply again: black sweater, dark jeans, a jacket that looked casual but tailored just enough to suggest taste. No flash, no logos, no obvious attempt to impress. Yet his presence was undeniable, the kind that made passers-by take second glances without knowing why. "You're late," she said when he stopped in front of her, though the clock on her phone betrayed the truth. "You're impatient," he replied, one brow raised, a smile flickering in his eyes if not on his lips. Her cheeks warmed. She hated how easily he could disarm her with so few words. The cable car swayed gently as it rose above the city. Packed shoulder to shoulder with tourists, Sophia found herself pressed closer to June than she intended. She could smell the faint spice of his cologne, something understated, clean, with a hint of cedar. Her pulse tripped over itself. "Don't tell me you're afraid of heights," June teased, noticing the way she gripped the railing. "I'm not," she lied quickly. "Then why are your knuckles white?" She shot him a glare, but he only chuckled, the sound low, rich, and too intimate for the crowded space. Sophia turned her face toward the glass, trying to hide her smile. Below them, Seoul sprawled endlessly, its buildings like scattered jewels against the fading light. When the cable car jolted, she swayed, bumping against him. June steadied her with a hand at her elbow. The contact was brief, steady, and far too casual for the effect it had on her. "Careful," he murmured. Her heart gave a traitorous leap. At the top, the city lay glittering under a sky streaked with pink and gold. The breeze tugged playfully at Sophia's scarf as she leaned on the railing. "It feels like the whole world is out there," she whispered. "And yet you're looking this way," June said softly. Sophia startled, realizing she wasn't staring at the view but at him. She quickly turned back, cheeks burning. "Don't flatter yourself." He didn't answer, but she could feel his quiet amusement. When they reached the fences heavy with locks of love, Sophia laughed. "This is so cheesy. Do people really think a lock can keep them together forever?" June tilted his head. "Maybe not, but maybe it reminds them of what they promised." Before she could respond, he pulled a small lock from his pocket. "You bought one?" she exclaimed, eyes widening. "Why not? Call it an experiment." Together, they fastened the lock to the fence. Their fingers brushed, lingering just a fraction too long. The metal felt cool, but her skin burned. She pulled back quickly, but not before June's eyes caught the faint flush in her cheeks. He said nothing, just smiled, that careful, almost hidden smile that always left her guessing. Namdaemun was a carnival of light and sound. Lanterns swung above narrow alleys, stalls overflowed with silks, carved trinkets, sizzling food that filled the air with spice and smoke. Sophia darted toward a stall, pointing at steaming sundae. "You have to try this." June looked skeptical. "That's the intestine, isn't it?" "Yes, Be brave, Busan boy. Busan men are already brave, he said dryly, but he took the skewer anyway. The moment he bit into it, his face contorted with mock horror. This is punishment. Sophia burst into laughter so bright and unrestrained that people turned their heads. Her shoulders shook as she doubled over, clutching her stomach. Oh my God! You should see your face. June tried to hold a scowl but failed. Laughing too, the sound deep and genuine. For a moment, they weren't strangers anymore, but two young people lost in the simple joy of teasing each other under Seoul's lantern glow. You're impossible, he said finally, still smiling. You love it? She shot back, wiping tears from her eyes. He looked at her for a long moment, longer than a joke required, and the truth hit him unexpectedly. Yes, he did love it. Not the food, not the market, but the way she seemed to carry light wherever she went. By evening, they sat on a bench by the Han River. The city shimmered in the water, the bridges glowing like golden threads across the dark surface. Couples walked hand in hand, cyclists whizzed past, children ran laughing. Yet somehow the world felt quieter here. Sophia pulled her jacket tighter against the breeze. Without a word, June shifted closer, the warmth of him brushing against her. You never talk about yourself, she said after a while, her voice low, thoughtful. Don't I? Not really. You ask me 100 questions. But when I ask you, you deflect. His lips curved faintly. Some stories are better told slowly. She studied him, his profile softened by the night. There was something he was holding back, secrets folded neatly behind his calm exterior. Most men she knew tried to impress, to show off. June did the opposite. He drew her in by revealing almost nothing. Her curiosity sharpened into something more dangerous. Longing. Their eyes met, and the pull between them was undeniable. His hand shifted as if to reach for hers, then hesitated. Her breath caught. The air thickened with the weight of what almost was. But then laughter rang out from a couple passing nearby, shattering the moment. June pulled back, his expression smoothing into composure. Let's get you home, he said softly, though something in his jaw betrayed restraint. At her dorm gate, Sophia lingered. The almost kiss still hung in the air, a ghost that made her chest ache. She wanted to ask him why he hadn't kissed her. She wanted to demand if he felt it too, the storm between them. But all she said was, "Good night, June." "Good night, Sophia," he replied. His gaze lingered, steady, searching, before he finally turned away. Inside, Sophia leaned against her door, pressing a hand to her chest. Her heart was still racing, her cheek still warm where his shoulder had brushed hers. It hadn't been a kiss, but somehow it felt even more dangerous, because it meant the waiting wasn't over, and waiting made the hunger sharper. And deep down, she knew this was only the beginning. Seoul's spring had softened into warm evenings, when the city's lights glowed like jewels, and the air smelled faintly of street food and lilacs. Sophia wasn't sure what this night was supposed to be. Another walk, another excuse to circle each other without naming what burned between them. But when June called and said, "Meet me by the river. I want to show you something," she went without hesitation. He was waiting at the Han Pier, leaning against the railing, his figure outlined by the glow of dockside lanterns. When he saw her, his lips curved not into a smirk, not into a polite smile, but into something softer, something meant only for her. "You're late," she teased, echoing her first words at Namsan. "Maybe I wanted you to miss me first," he answered smoothly. Before she could reply, he gestured to a small riverboat rocking gently against the dock. "Come on. Tonight, Seoul belongs to us." The boat was simple, wooden, draped with fairy lights strung along its edges. A quiet radio played old jazz in the background as the boatmen steered them away from the pier. The city unfurled around them, skyscrapers glowing like watchful sentinels. Sophia sat opposite June, her scarf fluttering lightly in the breeze. "Do you always do things like this?" she asked, though her voice trembled faintly with delight. "Only when I want to impress someone," he said, his gaze never leaving hers. Heat crept up her neck. "So I'm someone worth impressing." They spoke in fragments about favorite foods, about childhood games, about the loneliness of being far from home. But beneath the words, another conversation hummed. The steady drum of attraction, the silence stretched between glances, the pull neither dared to name outright. At one point, June reached into his jacket and pulled out a small folded napkin, scribbled with neat handwriting. "What's this?" she asked. "Something I read earlier today. A line I couldn't stop thinking about." She unfolded it, her eyes tracing the words. "Love is not finding someone to live with. It's finding someone you can't live without." Sophia's breath caught. She looked up to find his eyes on her, steady, unflinching. The meaning was clear. She swallowed hard, folding the napkin back slowly. "That's a dangerous thought," she whispered. "Some truths are," he replied softly. When the boat docked, the night had deepened, the river now a dark ribbon under the moon. They walked along the quiet path, their steps echoing softly. Sophia's heart hammered louder with each brush of his hand against hers. At the foot of a willow tree, they stopped without meaning to. The branches swayed above them, veiling them in shadows. "Sophia," he said, her name low, deliberate. She turned, and there it was again, that unbearable closeness. His eyes on her lips, the air charged with something that couldn't be contained anymore. This time there was no interruption. No laughter from strangers, no sudden distractions. June lifted his hand, cupping her cheek with a gentleness that unraveled her. His thumb brushed her skin, and she leaned into it before she could think. Their breaths mingled, and then finally his lips found hers. The kiss was not hurried, not careless. It was steady, claiming, the kind of kiss that silences worlds. Sophia's hands clutched at his jacket as though afraid he might vanish. The taste of him was soft and warm, tinged with something she couldn't name, longing, perhaps, or the relief of no longer pretending. When he pulled back slightly, his forehead rested against hers. His voice was rough, unguarded. "I've wanted to do that since the first night." Sophia's lips curved against his. "You should have done it sooner." He laughed quietly, then kissed her again, deeper this time, and the dam that had held them back finally broke. They didn't speak much after that. Words seemed unnecessary. Their fingers intertwined as they walked, and the silence was filled with the steady rhythm of two hearts finally beating in time. At her dorm, he kissed her again, slower, lingering, as though memorizing the shape of her mouth. "Good night, Sophia," he murmured, and for the first time, the word good night felt like a promise instead of an ending. Inside, she collapsed against her door, her lips still tingling, her body alive with the memory of his touch. She knew the danger, the mystery he still carried like shadows. But she also knew something else now. She was already in too deep to turn back. The days after their first kiss were a blur of stolen moments, hurried phone calls between lectures, whispered jokes over late-night ramen, hands brushing under cafe tables. To the world, nothing had changed. To Sophia and June, everything had. But even in the warmth of this secret bloom, shadows began to creep in. Sophia sat at the campus cafe, sketchbook open but untouched. She was still replaying the boat ride, the willow tree, his lips on hers when the seat across from her scraped back. Marcus. His sharp suit made him stand out among the students, his presence unsettling in its precision. He didn't smile, he never did. Instead, he placed a cup of coffee on the table between them. "For you," he said smoothly. "Black, no sugar. Just how you take it." Sophia frowned. How does he know that? "What do you want, Marcus?" He leaned in, voice calm but edged like glass. "A little advice. Don't get too comfortable with Junho." Her chest tightened. "Excuse me?" "You're smart, Sophia. Too smart to think this arrangement can last. You don't know him. Not really. And when you do," his lips twitched, almost a smile. "You'll wish you hadn't." She bristled, her grip tightening on her pen. "Stay out of my business." Marcus's gaze lingered on her face, searching, then slid away. "Consider it a friendly warning." And with that, he rose, leaving the untouched coffee between them, its bitter steam curling in the air. That evening, June was summoned to his family's mansion in Gangnam, a sprawling estate of glass and stone that spoke of old money and colder hearts. His father sat at the head of the table, stern, silent, every word measured. His mother was an elegant incarnate, her eyes sharp behind practiced warmth. And across from June sat his older brother, Ji-ho, the golden son, heir apparent in everyone's eyes but their father's. "Your name has been surfacing too often in the papers," his father said at last. "Business dinners, late-night sightings. You're drawing attention we don't need." "I'm working," June replied evenly. "You're distracted," his father corrected, his gaze like a blade. "And I won't allow distractions, especially not from outsiders." June's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. He knew what his father meant. Outsiders. People like Sophia. Ji-ho, his uncle, smirked faintly, raising his glass. "Some of us take the family legacy seriously, my nephew. Some of us don't." June's hand curled into a fist beneath the tablecloth. After dinner, his mother lingered by his side as he slipped on his coat. "Who is she?" she asked softly. His heart stalled. "What are you talking about?" "You've changed, June. I see it. Be careful. Love is a luxury men like you cannot afford." Her words clung to him long after he left. Later that night, June met Sophia by the university gardens, the same spot where blossoms were just beginning to fall. She ran to him, smiling, and for a moment he let himself forget everything Marcus, his father, the weight of his name. He kissed her, holding her like she was the only thing keeping him anchored. But when they sat, she noticed the shadow in his expression. "Something's wrong," she said. He hesitated. For a fleeting second, he wanted to tell her everything. The wars within his family, the silent expectations, the fact that even his freedom came with strings. Instead, he only murmured, "There are things about me you don't know yet." Her brows knit. "Then tell me." His hand cupped hers, trembling faintly. "I will. Soon. I just need you to trust me." Her heart twisted at the sincerity in his voice. She nodded. "I do." But when she leaned into him, resting her head against his shoulder, he closed his eyes knowing that soon, trust might not be enough. Across the street, a figure lingered in the shadows, watching them. Marcus's phone buzzed, a message lighting up the screen. He slipped the phone back into his pocket, his lips tightening into something between a sneer and a smile. This was only the beginning. June rented a quiet rooftop studio in Hongdae under the pretense of work. To the outside world, it was just another office. But to them, it became their secret haven, a place where time bent and the world's rules fell away. Sophia entered one evening, the city's neon lights spilling through the wide windows. June was already there, sleeves rolled up, pouring wine into 2 glasses. She laughed, easing off her jacket. "So this is where you've been hiding from the world?" "Not hiding," he murmured, handing her the glass. "Waiting." Their eyes met, the words stretching between them, heavy with meaning. Sophia took a slow sip, her pulse quickening. She knew what he meant. She had been waiting too. The music from his speakers shifted into something soft, a slow, crooning ballad. Without asking, he reached for her hand. "Dance with me," he said. "In the middle of an empty room?" she teased, though she didn't resist when he pulled her close. "In the middle of the world," he corrected. They swayed in silence, her head against his chest, his chin resting lightly on her hair. For once, there was no family, no Marcus, no danger. Just them. And yet the more they clung to each other, the sharper the thought became. This can't last forever. The next afternoon, Sophia sat in her dorm, sketching absent-mindedly when a message buzzed her phone. From Marcus. "I warned you. Do you really think he's who you believe he is? Check tomorrow's paper." Her stomach dropped. She almost deleted it, but her curiosity, her fear, made her tremble. That night she couldn't sleep. She replayed Marcus's words, June's evasive answers, the heaviness in his eyes whenever she asked too many questions. "What are you hiding from me, June?" The following evening, June brought her to a high-profile art gala, insisting it would be safe. You're with me. No one will touch you, he said, fastening the delicate bracelet he had chosen for her wrist. The gala hall glittered with chandeliers, champagne, and Seoul's most powerful figures. But the stares were sharper than knives. Sophia could feel them whisper about the beautiful foreign girl on June's arm. At one point, his uncle Jiho cornered them near the wine bar. So it's true, Jiho said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Our family's wild card has found himself a distraction. Sophia stiffened, but June's hand tightened reassuringly around hers. She's not a distraction, June said coldly. Jiho leaned closer, his breath laced with expensive liquor. Careful, nephew. Your father will crush anything that threatens the dynasty. And you know what happens to fragile things caught in his way. His gaze flicked to Sophia deliberately before he walked away. Her blood chilled. She clutched June's arm. Why would he say that? But June only pressed his lips into a hard line, refusing to answer. Later, when he drove her back, Sophia finally broke. June, I can't keep pretending nothing's wrong. Your uncle, your father, your friend Marcus, everyone is hinting at something I don't know. And you're shutting me out. He pulled over suddenly, the car idling on a quiet street. His hands gripped the wheel. I want to tell you, he said hoarsely. But once I do, you'll see me differently. You'll see the truth. And I'm afraid of losing you. Her heart ached. She reached for his hand, threading her fingers through his. You won't lose me. Not unless you keep lying to me. Their eyes met, and for the first time, he looked truly vulnerable. The mask of the confident mogul stripped away. He leaned in and kissed her fierce, desperate, as though she was the only safe place left in the world. And in that kiss, Sophia knew something for certain. Whatever storm was coming, it was already too late to turn back. From across the street, Marcus sat in his car, camera in hand. The lens captured everything. Their embrace, their kiss, their unspoken vow. He smirked, lowering the camera. Let's see how long love survives when the truth finally comes out. Sophia tried to bury Marcus's warning, but it clung to her like smoke. She replayed his words at the cafe, Jiho's smirk at the gala, the heaviness in June's eyes when he said there are things you don't know yet. She wanted to believe him. She did believe him, but Marcus was everywhere. One morning, as she left her dorm, she found an envelope tucked into her bag. No name, no address, only a glossy photograph inside. Her heart stuttered. It was her and June, kissing on the rooftop, his hand cradling her face, her body pressed into his. Across the bottom, scrawled in sharp ink, how much longer before the world sees? Her hands trembled. Who else had these pictures? Sophia tried to bury Marcus's warning, but it clung to her like smoke. She replayed his words at the cafe, Jiho's smirk at the gala, the heaviness in June's eyes when he said there are things you don't know yet. That evening, Marcus met with Jiho in a dimly lit lounge, a place where deals were struck over whiskey and quiet laughter. Your nephew has a weakness, Marcus said, sliding the photograph across the table. And she's it. Jiho studied the image, his lips curling in disdain. My brother would destroy him if this reached the press. Marcus leaned back, satisfied. Then let me do the work for you. All I need is your blessing. Jiho sipped his drink, eyes narrowing. Do it, but make sure he doesn't see it coming. Marcus's smile was thin, predatory. He won't. She will. 2 days later, Sophia sat in the university library when Marcus appeared again, sliding into the seat beside her as if he belonged there. You should be careful, he murmured. I told you to stay away from me, she snapped, clutching her books. He ignored her anger, sliding a thin folder across the table. Open it. Against her better judgment, she did. Inside were clippings, news articles, financial reports, headlines about the Kim family's empire, oil moguls' hidden scandals, land seizures in Africa, corruptions, allegations buried by power, and one photograph that made her blood run cold. June, much younger, shaking hands with men she recognized from African newspapers, men accused of exploiting her homeland's resources. That's not him, she whispered, though her voice trembled. Marcus tilted his head, studying her. You think you know him, but you don't. He's not just a man in love with you, Sophia. He's his father's son. And sons never escape their fathers. Her chest tightened painfully. You're lying. Maybe, Marcus said smoothly, rising to his feet. But lies are just truths in waiting. He left her staring at the papers, her world spinning. That night, Sophia met June in their rooftop hideout. He was waiting, his face lighting up when she entered. But she couldn't meet his gaze. What's wrong? He asked immediately, crossing the room. She shoved the folder into his chest, her voice breaking. Tell me this isn't true. He opened it, his eyes hardening as he scanned the contents. Where did you get this? That doesn't matter, she cried. Tell me it's a lie. Silence. The silence was worse than anything. June's jaw tightened, his chest rising and falling as though he was swallowing back words. Finally, he said quietly, Not everything you see is what it seems. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you right now. Her heart splintered. She pulled away from him, shaking her head. You're asking me to trust you, but all I see are secrets. How am I supposed to love someone who won't let me in? Because if I let you in, he said, his voice raw, I might lose you. The words cut her deeply, and though part of her wanted to stay, to cling to him, she turned and left the sound of the door closing echoing like a gunshot. For 3 days, Sophia avoided June. She ignored his calls, left his messages unread, and buried herself in lectures and studio work. Yet everywhere she turned, she saw him, in the cologne clinging faintly to her scarf, in the wine-stained napkin with that quote he'd once given her, in the memory of his mouth on hers under the willow tree. And still Marcus's words echoed louder. Sons never escape their fathers. At night, she sat by her window, staring at Seoul's glowing skyline. What if I've been loving a stranger? He paced his office, phone in hand, checking the unread message thread with Sophia. His work piled up, contracts left unsigned, meetings cut short. His assistant whispered that he seemed distracted. Distracted. That word his father had spit at him over the dinner table. At midnight, June drove past Amara's dorm and parked across the street. He saw her light still on, her shadow moving behind the curtains. He wanted to climb the stairs, to demand she listen, to hold her until her doubts dissolved. But instead, he sat in the dark, gripping the wheel, whispering to himself, Not yet. If I tell her everything now, I'll lose her forever. On the 4th day, Sophia received a video call from her mother back in New York City, United States. My daughter, her mother said warmly. You sound tired. Is the city of Seoul being kind to you? Sophia forced a smile. I'm fine, Mom. Just busy. With studies. Her mother studied her face. Your spirit looks restless. Have you met someone? Sophia hesitated. Her throat tightened. Yes, but it's complicated. Her mother chuckled softly. Love is always complicated, Sophia. The question is, does it make you feel alive? Or does it make you afraid? Sophia swallowed hard, blinking back sudden tears. Both, she wanted to say. It makes me alive and afraid all at once. That evening, June couldn't wait any longer. He found her sitting alone by the Han River, sketchbook balanced on her lap. She stiffened when he approached, but didn't move. Why are you here? She asked, her voice low. Because 3 days without you feels like 3 years, he admitted. His voice was hoarse, raw. Because you've locked me out, and I can't breathe not knowing what you're thinking. Sophia's hand clenched on her pencil. I'm thinking maybe Marcus was right. Maybe I don't know who you are at all. His chest tightened. Don't let him poison what we have. Then tell me the truth, she burst out, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Tell me what you're hiding. Tell me why your uncle warned me. Tell me why your father would never accept me. Just tell me. He stared at her, every instinct screaming to speak, but the weight of his family's secrets chained his tongue. Instead, he stepped closer, cupping her face, his voice breaking. All you need to know is this. I love you. More than the company, more than my family's empire, more than anything in this city. Isn't that enough? Her tears spilled. No, June. Love isn't enough if it's built on secrets. She pulled back, leaving his hands empty, and walked away. Hidden under the bridge's shadows, Marcus watched the scene unfold with quiet satisfaction. He lifted his phone, recording Sophia's tearful departure. Then he dialed Jiho. "They're breaking," he said simply. Jiho's laughter crackled through the receiver. "Good. Let him suffer. When the truth comes out, it won't just ruin him. It'll ruin her too." Marcus pocketed his phone, his smirk darkening. The trap was nearly complete. She had sworn she wouldn't answer his texts, wouldn't let his shadow linger in her thoughts, wouldn't dream about the press of his lips on hers. But promises were flimsy things when your heart was on fire. On Friday evening, her body betrayed her. She walked the neon-lit streets of Hongdae, head down, sketchbook clutched like a shield. The bass of club music thumped through the alleys, mingling with the aroma of grilled meat from late-night stalls. Every step she took toward the rooftop studio felt like a confession. "Turn back," she told herself. "End this before it ends you." But her feet refused. When she reached the top of the narrow stairwell and pushed open the door, the city greeted her sprawling beneath glass windows like a sea of molten light. And there he was. June stood by the pane, framed by Seoul's glittering skyline. The shadows sharpened his cheekbones, his dark suit undone at the collar. When he turned and saw her, his lips parted in something between relief and longing. "You came," he said, voice hushed. Her pulse thudded. "I shouldn't have. But you did," he replied, stepping forward, every line of his body radiating restrained hunger. The air between them thickened. Sophia's throat went dry. She wanted to flee, but when his hand brushed hers, the electricity was undeniable. She trembled, caught between fear and desire. "June," she whispered, torn. "Don't say anything." His voice was velvet and steel. He pulled her against him, and for a reckless heartbeat, Sophia let herself collapse into the warmth of his chest, his heartbeat pounding against her ear like war drums. Minutes passed before they sat together on the leather couch. Outside, the rain had begun again, soft drops tracing rivulets down the window glass. Sophia turned toward him, eyes searching. "Why do I feel like I'm fighting for you?" she murmured. "While you're fighting against me?" His jaw tightened, pain flashing in his gaze. "You think I'm not fighting?" "Sophia, every step I take toward you is a war against my world, against my father, against everything I was raised to protect." Her chest ached. "Then let me share that war." He hesitated, torn. His hand lifted, hovering at her cheek, then retreating as if burned. "If I let you in, they won't just destroy me. They'll destroy you." Her lips trembled. "Maybe I'd rather burn with you than watch you drown alone." His control shattered. He caught her face in his hands, crashing his mouth onto hers. The kiss wasn't soft, wasn't sweet. It was desperate, hungry, fierce. A man clinging to the one thing he couldn't bear to lose. Sophia gasped against him, but her resistance crumbled. She kissed him back, her hands curling into his shirt, pulling him closer. His lips claimed hers again and again, searing her doubts with fire. When they broke apart, gasping, Sophia whispered against his lips, "Then let them try." For the first time in days, he smiled, not the polished smile of a mogul, but the raw, unguarded smile of a man in love. Perched on a rooftop bar with his whiskey glass glinting under neon, he aimed his camera lens at the couple through the glass. He zoomed in, capturing each stolen kiss, each lingering touch, each whisper against the skin. He smirked. Perfect. Love always looks most beautiful when it's about to be ruined. With a flick of his finger, he sent one of the photos to Jiho. The caption beneath it was short, cruel. Later that night, June insisted on walking Sophia back to her dorm. The streets were quieter now, the city buzz dimming to the hum of streetlights and the occasional passing cab. The pavement was slick from the rain. Sophia's arm brushed his, and though they said little, the silence felt charged, not awkward, but heavy with everything they couldn't name aloud. At one intersection, June stopped abruptly. His grip on her hand tightened. "What is it?" Sophia asked, heart lurching. He scanned the shadows in a narrow alley to their left, the faint red glow of a cigarette ember vanishing into the dark. His jaw clenched. "Nothing," he said at last, though his voice was low, guarded. He didn't release her hand until they reached her building. There, under the yellow glow of the dorm light, she turned to him. "You're hiding something again," she whispered. He leaned in, brushing his lips against her forehead, lingering there for a breath. "Not hiding," he murmured. "Protecting." And then he walked away, swallowed by the night.